He gave up the woman he loved for money, but now he's on the verge of losing everything that truly matters. Can he turn things around, or is it already too late? Let's find out together. Get ready with your popcorn because what you're about to see in this captivating movie will amaze you. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're discussing a fascinating new Nigerian movie that's more than just entertainment. It's packed with important lessons you won't want to miss. So let's dive right in. The movie begins with a young man named Liberty, who arrives late to work with his girlfriend, Annie. His boss is furious and calls both of them names. As Annie is about to leave, she and Liberty share a kiss. Just then, Liberty's boss calls him over again. Meanwhile, another young man, Kester, is seen taking care of his sick father. He pleads with his father to eat something before heading to the hospital, but his father insists that Kester should attend to an important client they have been trying to secure for a long time. However, Kester prioritizes his father's health, so they sit together and enjoy a meal at the dining table. That same day, while Liberty is driving his boss to a destination, he accidentally crashes into a wealthy man's car. Immediately, he hides his face in fear while his boss, visibly frustrated, steps out of the vehicle to plead with the wealthy man and his father, Kester's father. However, both men remain silent. Growing impatient, Liberty's boss drags him out of the car and forces him to apologize. In front of everyone, he insults Liberty, calling him all sorts of names. To everyone's shock, Kester's father then reveals that Liberty is his first son. He instructs Liberty to get into the car, and they drive home, leaving Liberty's boss completely stunned. When Kester and his father get home, Kester insists that Liberty should have no place in their house or their lives. However, his father firmly reminds him that regardless of what Liberty has done, he is still his son and will never be abandoned. Though Kester understands his father's point, he is still deeply hurt by the past and refuses to acknowledge Liberty as his brother. Seeing the anger in Kester's eyes, his father tells him to freshen up so they can discuss the matter another day. Later, Liberty returns home and shares the news with Annie. He tells her that his father will be calling him soon, and that, despite everything, his father has shown him immense love, proving how much he misses him. Annie is amazed by this revelation, and Liberty confidently expresses his feelings as they enjoy their moment together. That evening, Kester meets with a friend who consoles him. Overwhelmed with emotions, Kester finally opens up and reveals the painful reason why it's so difficult for him to accept Liberty back into their lives. Flashback to the past. A young woman whom Kester had saved from a gang of robbers visits his house, hoping to see his elder brother, Liberty. Kester is surprised that they know each other. The woman explains how she met Liberty and expresses her gratitude to Kester for saving her life. She then compliments Liberty, and the two share a special moment together. One morning, Liberty is fast asleep when his father comes to wake him up. He is furious because Liberty failed to attend an important business meeting, causing a potential client to walk away in anger. Liberty, however, does not care. He just wants to enjoy life on his own terms. His father, wanting the best for him, insists that he take things seriously. In response, Liberty speaks disrespectfully to his father, saying hurtful things that deeply wound him. Disappointed and ashamed, his father walks away in pain while Liberty goes back to sleep, completely indifferent. The next day, Kester has a conversation with Annie. She tells him how much Liberty means to her. As an orphan, she has never experienced love before, but Liberty has given her the affection she always longed for. Kester is moved by her words, and they share a heartfelt moment. Later that day at the dining table, Liberty announces that he has a solution to make his father happy since he always brings shame to the family. Excited, his father eagerly listens. However, his excitement quickly turns to disappointment when Liberty demands his share of the family's assets, claiming that he wants to prove he can be successful on his own. Kester strongly disagrees with this idea, and a heated argument nearly breaks out. Despite the tension, Liberty remains firm in his decision as they continue their meal. That night, Kester goes to speak with Liberty, trying to reason with him and make him understand that his decision is not wise. However, Liberty stands his ground, insisting that he wants his freedom. He believes he knows what he is doing and even threatens that if he doesn't get what he wants, there will be trouble in the house. Kester, frustrated and disappointed, reminds Liberty that as the elder brother, he is supposed to set an example. But Liberty refuses to change his mind and eventually sends Kester out of his room, wanting to be left alone. Wow, this is really deep. Why would a child behave this way? Is it the right thing to do, even if he truly has a plan? Share your thoughts as we see whether he will eventually get what he wants. The next day, Annie visits Liberty, only to find him in an unconscious state. Panicked, she calls for help. Kester and their father arrive quickly and rush to get medical assistance. When Liberty regains consciousness, he immediately starts threatening his father, warning that things will get worse if he doesn't get what he wants. His father, devastated by his son's obsession with money, is deeply disappointed. All Liberty seems to care about is wealth and his independence, leaving his father overwhelmed with thoughts about what to do next. Later that night, while Liberty was sleeping, his father came to ask him what he planned to do with such a large amount of money if it was given to him. He then tested Liberty by asking some basic questions about their company. At first, Liberty pretended not to know anything, but soon he answered all the questions correctly. However, he made it clear to his father that he was not interested in his style of business and preferred to do things his own way. His father was still disappointed with him and eventually left the room. A few days later, Liberty's father finally decided to divide his assets between his sons. However, Liberty was not happy that the wealth was shared equally. Despite this, his father handed him the documents of everything that belonged to him. Liberty was overjoyed and immediately announced that he would be leaving the house with his girlfriend, Annie. After saluting his father and Kester, he left. The next day, while Liberty was packing his things, he reassured Annie that everything would go well. Kester then came to plead with him not to leave, saying that he couldn't imagine life without his elder brother. However, Liberty did not see things the same way. Kester tried everything he could to convince him, but nothing worked. In the end, Liberty left with Annie, leaving Kester alone. Later, Kester shared his concerns with a friend. He worried that once Liberty squandered his share of the inheritance, he might come back to demand more, possibly even trying to take the part that Kester had worked so hard to build. His friend advised him to accept his brother back if that ever happened, reminding him that all fathers behave the same way when it comes to their children. It was a tough moment for Kester, but in the end, he agreed to accept Liberty back if necessary. They then enjoyed their moment together. The next day, Kester was urging his father to take his medication, but his father was more concerned about reuniting his sons. He pleaded with Kester to accept his brother rather than allowing him to waste his life on the streets. He explained the true value of family and everything he had learned from experience. Kester then shared his fears, wondering if Liberty had truly changed. His father insisted that they should let him back in first and only then find out whether he had changed. If Liberty was still the same, he would have no right to anything else. Reluctantly, Kester agreed, which made his father very grateful. Meanwhile, Liberty kept hoping for a call from his father. He reassured Annie that his father would soon invite him back home. Moments later, his father called, asking him to return. Overjoyed, Liberty celebrated with Annie as they packed their things and left. The next day, Liberty finally returned home, only to find his father terribly sick. His father refused to go to the hospital and instead focused on making Liberty understand that everything now belonged to Kester. He advised Liberty to make something meaningful out of his life. He shared wise words with him and then instructed Kester to take care of his brother no matter what. His final words to both of them were about love. Shortly after, he passed away. At that moment, Liberty broke down in tears, expressing deep regret over his father's death. He blamed himself for his past mistakes, but Annie was there to console him as they mourned their father's passing. A few weeks later, after the burial, Liberty began pressuring Kester about what he had in store for him. Kester was shocked by his brother's behavior, as it was the wrong time to discuss such matters. Firmly, he told Liberty that he would discuss it when he was ready, then walked away. That night, in his room, Kester was overwhelmed with emotions. He cried out to his father, seeking guidance on what to do with his life and his brother. It was a painful moment, but life had to go on. This is truly touching. But the question remains, has Liberty really changed? Even if he receives another share of the inheritance, will he be able to manage it wisely? Share your thoughts and advice as we try to learn from this situation. The next day, while Kester was working on his laptop, Liberty approached him to continue their discussion. Kester then made him an offer. He would give Liberty a piece of land, shares in the company, a car, and 300 million naira to start over. However, there was one condition. Liberty had to end his relationship with Annie. Liberty, initially excited, suddenly became serious as he processed the offer. Now, let's find out if he will accept these terms or not. Liberty later discussed the matter with Annie. She immediately realized that he was willing to trade their relationship in exchange for wealth. He tried to convince her, saying that if she agreed, it would ultimately be for their own good. He reassured her that he had a plan, but Annie was heartbroken and walked out on him. She then went to confront Kester, calling him names before storming out. Liberty had to calm Annie down after the confrontation. Although she was against the idea, he manipulated her emotionally, making her feel guilty. Because of her deep love for him, she eventually gave in and agreed to his plan. Later that night, Annie went to Kester's room to apologize. She explained how much she loved Liberty and wanted to see him become a better man. She said that if they ever got married, Liberty could have her body, but he would never truly have her heart. Kester listened and then told her to pack her things and move into his room, as she had now accepted the deal. The next morning, in the living room, Liberty attempted to hug Annie, but Kester stopped him. Instead, he told Liberty that everything was already set. All that remained was for him to come to the office and sign some documents to gain access to what had been promised. Annie, visibly hurt, wished Liberty well and walked away. A few weeks later, Kester and Annie were seen taking a walk together, holding hands. That night, while Kester was working, Annie came into his room and lay down, hoping he would sleep beside her. However, Kester remained focused on his work and, instead of joining her, left the room to continue working in the living room. The next morning at the dining table, while they were all having breakfast, Liberty made his brother understand that he had kept his part of the agreement. In response, Kester told him to show up at the office. Annie congratulated Liberty and then left for her room. The following day, after Liberty had collected everything that was promised to him, he let his ego take over and began bragging. He then told Annie that they should run away together now that he had gotten what he wanted. Annie was completely taken aback, realizing that this had been his plan all along. Disappointed, she showed him the document he had signed, pointing out that everything he had received was still legally in Kester's name. If he attempted to breach the terms, all his assets would be revoked, leaving him with nothing. Liberty was shocked when he saw this, but despite that, he still insisted on running away with the 300 million naira. However, Annie refused to go with him because she had seen how recklessly he wasted money in the past. Liberty tried every trick of emotional blackmail he could, but Annie had grown tired of his ways. It seems Liberty hasn't changed after all. Wow, let's see how things unfold from here. Later that night, Kester called Annie for a conversation and asked about her dreams. She told him that she had always wanted to be a fashion designer, but had to give up on it due to a lack of money and support. Kester then revealed his plan to enroll her in a fashion design school and encouraged her never to give up on her identity for anyone, no matter who they were or what the situation might be. Annie was overjoyed and grateful for his support before leaving the room. The following night, Annie tried to call Liberty since he hadn't returned home, but his phone was unreachable. Worried, she stepped outside, only to see Liberty arriving with another woman, whom he took straight to his room. Feeling uncomfortable, Annie left Kester's room and went to Liberty's room, pulling him out forcefully into the living room. She confronted him about his actions, but Liberty was indifferent, reminding her that she had refused to go with him. The argument between them escalated, which made Kester furious. Kester then told Liberty to leave the house since he had already been settled financially. He also told Annie to leave with Liberty if she wanted to, making it clear that she was free to go. As Annie packed her belongings, Kester informed her of everything he had set up for her and told her she had to choose, either to stay and make something of her life or leave with Liberty. Overwhelmed by emotions, she broke down in tears. This is a difficult situation. What should Annie do? Should she stay and build her future or leave with Liberty? And if you were in Liberty's position, would you allow the woman you once gave up to stay behind? Or would you insist she leave with you? Share your thoughts in the comments below as we see how this unfolds. The next morning, Liberty waited for Annie so they could leave together, but when she finally came to him, she told him that she wasn't going with him. She explained that she couldn't sacrifice the opportunity to better her life just because of her feelings for him, especially considering his lack of financial discipline. Liberty, feeling rejected, left angrily, warning her never to come back to him for any reason. Annie, meanwhile, pleaded with Kester, who agreed to continue supporting her. From that moment, they started spending more time together. That day, Liberty returned home feeling happy that he was finally free to live his life however he wanted. He showed no remorse or fear about what the future might hold. However, months and years later, Annie began to enjoy her life at Kester's house, especially as she pursued her training. She was so dedicated that she spent both days and nights working, sometimes even falling asleep from exhaustion. Kester often assisted her when she was overwhelmed. Meanwhile, Liberty was living a reckless life, spending his money on parties and inviting different women over to enjoy with him. One day, while Kester and Annie were on their way home, Liberty suddenly blocked their path, insisting that he wanted to take his woman back by force. Kester, enraged, threatened to have him arrested. Liberty, realizing that Kester was serious, left but warned that he would return for Annie. Kester and Annie then drove off, leaving Liberty behind. One morning, Liberty woke up and checked his phone, only to find an unexpected deposit of 10 million naira in his account. He immediately had a flashback to when he had first left home. He remembered how Annie had always encouraged him to invest his money wisely, but he never listened. He also recalled the times when he lost everything. And despite that, Annie had still stood by his side. At that moment, he finally realized the true value of the woman he had given up. Determined to make things right, he made up his mind to do whatever it took to win Annie back. Weeks later, Liberty visited his father's house, where he unexpectedly saw Annie. She took the opportunity to make him understand why their father always loved Kester more, because Kester genuinely cared about the well-being of others. Liberty had never bothered to ask about her dreams or aspirations, but now that Kester was giving her life meaning, she couldn't afford to lose that just to follow Liberty. She made it clear that she would rather be with a man than follow a boy. With that, she walked away, refusing to give in to his emotional blackmail. What a bold move. Annie has finally come to her senses. She just did something she never thought she would do. But what do you think? Will this relationship between her and Liberty continue? If you were in her shoes, would you still insist on being with Liberty? Share your thoughts before we see what happens next. A few months later, Liberty humbly called his brother, sincerely asking for his help on how to succeed as a businessman. He pleaded with Kester, who told him to come another day. On the scheduled day, Liberty waited for Kester, but Kester was reluctant to give him attention. He didn't believe that Liberty was truly willing to change or that he genuinely needed his help. Kester even made it clear that even if something happened to him, none of his wealth would go to Liberty. It would all go to charity. However, after observing Liberty's determination, Kester finally decided to listen. Liberty revealed that he wanted to invest in the furniture business. Seeing his seriousness, Kester explained how the business would work. Liberty was deeply grateful and left feeling hopeful. A few days later, Kester began mentoring Liberty on how to run the business. When Annie walked in and saw them together, she was surprised. Without saying much, she quietly left for her room while they continued their discussion. Later that evening, Kester informed Annie that Liberty would be staying with them temporarily so he could learn and improve his life. Annie appreciated Kester's generosity and kindness. The next day, After returning from work, Kester encouraged Liberty to start doing things differently if he truly wanted to change. He told him that waking up early had to become a habit. Liberty, determined to succeed, was willing to do whatever it took. While they continued their discussion about the furniture business, Annie brought them some water. Liberty was momentarily distracted by her presence, but quickly refocused on their conversation. Annie began to notice a real change in Liberty. Every night, he stayed awake late, working hard to ensure everything was done properly. The next morning, Kester and Annie sat at the dining table, waiting for Liberty to join them for breakfast. Assuming he was still asleep, they were surprised when he suddenly came out, fully dressed, and informed them that he had an early meeting with a client. Without wasting time, he left for his appointment. One special day, Annie came home with exciting news. She had officially graduated. She joyfully shared her achievement with Kester, and they celebrated together. Soon after, Liberty also arrived, sharing his own success. He had secured a contract worth 160 million naira. Overjoyed, they all decided to celebrate. Later that night, in the bedroom, Annie expressed her gratitude to Kester and leaned in to kiss him, but he gently refused. Despite having taken her away from Liberty over a year and a few months ago, he had never once touched her. Confused, she asked why. Kester then made her realize that Liberty's transformation had happened because of her. He told her that although he loved her, he wouldn't deprive her of the person her heart truly desired. He didn't want her to feel indebted to him. Instead, he encouraged her to return to Liberty, assuring her that Liberty was a changed man and wouldn't go back to his old ways. That night, Annie went to Liberty and opened up about her fears. She was afraid that he might return to his past reckless lifestyle, wasting money, using drugs, and being careless. She admitted that Kester had insisted she return to the man she truly loved, but she needed assurance. Liberty reassured her, promising that he would continue on the right path and never go back to his old ways. They reconciled, expressing their love for each other once more. This movie teaches us an important lesson about being responsible individuals, to our parents, to our loved ones, and to society. It opens our eyes to the reality that sometimes our expectations don't align with reality, but we should always make the most of the opportunities before us to become better versions of ourselves. True love exists. The person meant to be with you will stay, and no amount of wealth can change the heart of someone who doesn't truly want to be with you. Be your brother's keeper. Never underestimate the power of having a loving and supportive family. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more exciting updates on the latest Nigerian movies. See you next time.